Welcome to the presentation number 40, Two Witnesses, that is this series, and Babylon, part 6. Today we discuss Babylon being judged by God, and the judgment of Babylon is sprinkled across scriptures. We have in Isaiah, we have in Jeremiah as straight versions, and then in Revelation, and we have pretty much scattered across different books of Bible in terms of illusions. There are several illusions of Babylon being judged. So whichever entity reaches or changes to become a Babylon, that would be judged by God. So we have good people, good entities becoming Babylon, and then God comes and judges the Babylon. So that is the paradigm. Why God judges Babylon? What is so wrong about that, about Babylon? Why its sins reach the heaven and God remembered Babylon and then he sends the judgment. So those are the phrases we revolve around. And before starting the presentation, I want to share the whiteboard and explain few more concepts before we launch into Isaiah 13. So I'll stop share here and start with whiteboard. So the Babylon starts as a city at the Tower of Babel. So the Tower of Babel, people came and assembled as one big, huge group at land of Shinar, or it's called plain of Shinar. At Shinar, they said, let us build a tower whose top would reach heaven. So it has a ziggurat. So there's a pathway. And you have some kind of pagan temple here. This is Babel. This is the roots and origin of Babylon. And then you have a city and they also said, let us build a name for ourselves. So this is from Genesis 11. Let us build a tower and a city, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we scatter abroad. So they do not want to scatter abroad the whole earth. This is in direct opposition to God and open rebellion to his revealed commandment that be fruitful and multiply and spread out and replenish the whole earth. That is the purpose of God. They refuse to scatter and move across and inhabit the whole earth. They just came out of the flood. The earth is still open and uninhabited, but God wants, according to his divine purpose, that people should spread out. And they hear the rebellion, the first rebellion, a rebellious tower and a rebellious city. And rebellion, the root and core of the rebellion is here, the name. Let us make a name. The Hebrew word is Shem. And they said, we don't like Shem telling us what to do. We hate Shem. So they said, we reject the Shem that comes from God, and we will make our own Shem. This is the root of Babylon. And then we have this city and tower. This is tower. Each of these things have lots of embedded meanings, embedded rich information, and also they said, let us burn the bricks. So you have bricks also. Bricks are made up of dirt. Dirt has an illusion of sand. So they're building this tower and the city on sand instead of building that on a rock. So it is founded on sand. Its foundation, sand is the foundation. Is its foundation. So this is the beginning of Tower of Babel and the city of Babylon. All the concepts here you see in this diagram, and each of these things would be expanded as we progress in our series studying Babylon. So Shem here, our own Shem, Shem is a picture and a type and a shadow of Jesus Christ. He is a spiritual Shem. So what the Babylonians would do is, let us make our own Shem. Let us make our own authority. The name, its meaning is authority. Let us make our own authority. We decide what has to be done, what has to be told. We don't want God's authority. So they reject God's authority and then they institute their own authority. That is the meaning of making our own name. And then God comes and judges them. And he confuses the languages so that they abandon the whole project. They abandon the tower, they abandon the city to the large extent, and they are forced to scatter abroad the whole earth. So this is a sovereign God's supernatural intervention in a very unique way, not seen anytime in the past. So each time God judges, it's almost like a new, unique, sovereign way, telling Babylonians that He is God. He rules over the kingdoms of men. However strong and however powerful the dictators of the world may think, they are just merely as puppets or grasshoppers before the Almighty and sovereign God. That is the concept of God conveying when He judges Babylon. So the Babel, at this earlier stage, God judges the Babel by confusing the languages. So we see the judgment of God and Babel and later Babylon, always that is part of the story of Babylon, story of Babel. God judges. And in fact, we use the phraseology that God judged. God judged. God always judges Babylon, and Babylon is always judged, either in the past or in the present or in the future. It is going to happen. It's almost as if it's a done deal that Babylon is judged, will be judged. So we use past tense even for the future events because it is done deal, because the Babylon deserves this judgment from God. Then we have the so let me take this out and then we'll go through another diagram. Now, we have discussed this little bit in the past two presentations. Babylon is defined as a mother. So you have a mother and then you also see this as a city and you also see this as mountain. Then the parallel concept God uses another mother, a parallel concept. And then another city and another mountain. This is mother, actually. Mother is an instructor, so instructs. Both the mothers instruct. Here, the New Jerusalem, this is the Jerusalem above, or New Jerusalem. And this is Babylon. This is Babylon. So this mother, both are mothers. Mothers are instructors, but this is a harlot mother. Harlot is the word, Greek word is porneia. Porneia means idolatry. This is an idolatrous woman. She rejects the authority of God. She makes an idol of God according to her own will and to serve her own purposes. This is almost equivalent to let us make a name for ourselves. So she has another Jesus. This is another Jesus. This is very important to understand. And here you have Jesus Christ as its foundation. This city has 12 foundations. We see that in Book of Revelation. 12 foundations. And each of the foundation on that 12 apostles' names are written. And 12 apostles are built on one foundation, that is a rock. This is founded on rock, this city. And the other city is founded on sand. This is founded on sand or dirt or bricks. Bricks. How is this city built. This is founded on rock, and then all the whole city is built with stones. You are lively stones. You and I are living stones that are used to build this spiritual city called New Jerusalem. These are the concepts behind the Babylon and New Jerusalem. New Jerusalem is a mother, and some of her children are raised to be her teachers. This woman teaches and instructs her children through selected individuals. The first selected individual is Jesus Christ, Son of God. Son of God. He is the primary instructor. And on top of that, you have 12 apostles. And then you have modern teachers who are faithful to the words of Jesus Christ. Those are the instructors or the agencies of instruction used by this mother. Similarly, Babylon rejects Jesus Christ and makes another Jesus or another Yeshua, and she also has agencies of teachers and the the false teachers, you can say. She also instructs, but her foundation is idolatry. And on left hand side, the foundation is faithful witness, that is faithfulness. The faithful witness, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, the faithfulness is her foundation. The unfaithfulness or idolatry is the foundation of Babylon. Babylon is also a lusting city, a coveting city, and it covets as much as she wants to satisfy her lusts. And the left hand side, the New Jerusalem or the true church, is free of all covetousness. It is content with what God gives her, and she rejoices in the things that she receives from God. She is thankful and grateful. She wouldn't trespass the commandment against covetousness. She is also faithful, and she honors every word of God, especially the teachings of Christ. And the other party totally dishonors. And here, the Babylon is used as a tool to judge people. So let me go to the third diagram with this background. So you have Jerusalem. You have Babylon. Now, Jerusalem is a representation of church, and Jerusalem is, it used to be good. At the beginning, it's a holy city. It's a faithful city. And it is also called, this is physical layer. Let's see, physical. And you have, this is physical. And this is spiritual. God uses Babylon to punish Jerusalem or Judah for its sins. So this becomes a tool in hands of God, tool in hands of God, and then this becomes sinful city. Sinful city. And then Babylonians come and they have major three invasions, and they take away a bunch of people back to Babylon as slaves. So three invasions. Three invasions. And then Babylon takes everybody back, and very few remnant are left after the third invasion. And they become people of God, become subjugated and slaves. So here, Jerusalem is Judeans. Judeans are brought into bondage. We discussed this. So they're under bondage, under subjugation, under Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylon. This is around 600 BC. Now, this is called script one. This is very important for me, for us to understand. This whole thing is called script one. Script one is now Babylon. There is no more Jerusalem. Jerusalem is burnt, and temple is burnt, and all the artifacts are taken to Babylon. And this is a sinful city that is judged, and they become subjects of Babylon, and they became enslaved and under bondage. The covenanted people are under subjugation of Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar. And then things go roll for a few years, and Babylon becomes a very evil nation. They go beyond what God wanted them to do. They become more they they do more tyranny on the people of God. They go beyond what God wanted them to do. So they start exploiting people, subjugating people, show violence, and they unleash terror against the people of God. And they not only for the people of God, rest of the kingdoms, rest of the city states that were brought under subjugation of Babylon, they exploit them and show them tyranny and cruelty. And they, out of using the tactics of terror, they subjugate all the people. And then they go and progress in their evil more and more until they reach to their most wicked state. Now we are faced with a world superpower completely exploiting every other nation, including Judeans, the covenanted people of God. At this point, God starts script two. Script two. This is very important that we understand. Script two starts from script one. Whatever resulted from script one is the stage for script two. Script two. This is a stage. Sorry. So when God begins to decide to judge Babylon, now we have Judah or people of God already under subjugation of Babylon. So you must understand the new stage that is set for the script 2. So we will start with script 2. It's a fundamental, because script 2 is very different from script 1. God takes lots of pains, lots of time to build the stage for script 2. Now we are in the script 2. Script 2, this is important. Now we have Babylon. Completely putting down every nation, every other nation, including Judah, tribe of Judah, plus Benjamin, plus portions of Levi, these are the covenanted people, and other nations, they are completely subjugating and exploiting, and they introduce the idolatry to the people of God, and they subjugated in several ways and put them under their thumb. And then God remembers to judge Babylon. Now God brings another agency to judge Babylon. So other agency is Persia. We can add Medo. Medo-Persian Empire. It brings against Babylon. And there is one particular leader that is very interesting is Cyrus. Cyrus leads Medo-Persian Empire, and their armies come and conquer Babylon. And that is the end of the Babylon. So Cyrus is used as an agency of God and to destroy the Babylon, to bring down the Babylon, to bring judgment of God. So Cyrus would be acting on behalf of God. God's vengeance against Babylon is unleashed by Cyrus. The terror tactics that are used by Babylon would be would be doubled by Cyrus. Cyrus and other Persian rulers would come and unleash equal terror as a punishment to Babylon. And the Medo-Persians are known for having no pity and no sensitivity. They are more harder and more wicked than Babylonians, because that is the judgment of God that is unleashed against Babylon. So Babylon, if you take Babylon is a city that is surrounded by Euphrates. So this is Euphrates. This goes around Babylon. This is Euphrates. Euphrates River. And then this is Babylon. A small channel also goes through Babylon. But here, the Euphrates serves two purposes for Babylon. It is surrounded by Euphrates. Euphrates serves Babylon primarily for protection. Now, in order to attack Babylon, you need to have naval power, and you need exceedingly great naval power to attack and come to the walls or gates of Babylon. It's almost impossible in those times to have such a magnificent navy. So second thing is it caused affluence. All the wealth of Babylon is produced by Euphrates. Euphrates fed all the crops of Babylon, and crops yielded lots of grain, and grain brought lots of wealth, and from wealth, lots of commerce has come into picture, and Babylon became exceedingly wealthy, and everything that a man wants, they could accomplish. They are world's superpower. Because of the money, they were also militarily more powerful. So the protection and the affluence These are the two important things provided by Euphrates, and that caused Babylon to be number one military power. If they want, they can send their armies to the banks and then they can march and destroy any other city, including Jerusalem. But they themselves are protected. So, number one, military. Second is number one, commerce, trade. And they're wealthy people. And military, commerce, and what else? They have number one politically. Political. This is superpower. And then it is also number one religion. Number one religion of the world. Their gods became prominent and predominant above every other gods, every other system. So they are the number one religious power, and they can subdue all the nations under them, and they can enforce and force their gods on everybody else. And it is also idolatry spiritually. So these are some of the things that we have to keep in mind. And it is a military superpower and a commerce superpower. It's a political superpower. It's a religious superpower. And it is the superpower of their day. And God is going to judge through Medo-Persian Empire. And the Cyrus comes here and then he dries up. He comes and dries up the Euphrates. So Euphrates is dried up and his troops march across the dry land and enter through the gates. And it's a silent, majestic takeover. It's a bloodless coup. And all the Babylonians were drunk and reveling in that night. And the king was killed, and it was taken, the whole Babylon is taken overnight. And then the judgment is swift and quick and great. That is from God. God says, Cyrus, my servant, Cyrus, my anointed, I will send him against Babylon. We see the same script in Revelation. There is a spiritual Babylon and spiritual Euphrates, and spiritual Cyrus would come and dry up spiritual Euphrates and get to Babylon and destroy it. So physical Cyrus is king of Medo-Persia. Spiritual Cyrus would be Jesus Christ. It's obvious. So Euphrates, when it is dried up, its protection is taken away, and eventually the affluence that fed Babylon, all its luxury and all its things are driven by agricultural muscle of Babylon. Because of Euphrates, they could do so much production of agriculture through their irrigation, and they are not afraid of floods, they are not afraid of drought, and they have continual supply of food. And food in excess form led to invention, led to the commerce, led to the prosperity, and they became all these number ones: military, commerce, political, and religion, idolatry. So this is the story of Babylon. Script 2 is the judgment of Babylon. Here, we would be seeing some of the graphic language and graphic descriptions how the judgment on Babylon takes place. Now, I want you to be aware, like even I am recently getting aware of several teachers in over the internet. They are warning when you introduce graphic language of children being dashed and the woman ravished. These are very graphic events, and the people would be disillusioned and depressed when God does these things. How can a holy, righteous God do such kind of judgments on people? So you have to take a step back and see who is attacked when God judges Babylon. Now, I know some people raised by a cruel and high handed stepfather, and he was all the time pouncing on the child. As the child grew up, you have all the bad memories of any authority figure, any punishment, any judgment, because it was overdone by your stepfather. And now you have nightmare of anybody punishing anybody else. You become extreme pacifist and you identify God with peace and pacifism. And any judgment would trigger thoughts of your cruel stepfather, and you would be turned off. Or a girl raised by her harsh stepmother. Now she has all the torments and tortures her stepmother inflicted on her, and she couldn't bear any punishment or anybody, any harsh tone or any correction she views as her stepmother in action. So for her, God is extremely passive and extremely pacified and no judgment. It's all mercy, it's all grace. That's a lopsided, unbalanced view of God. Now, if a woman was raped multiple times and she's extremely uh, subdued in her heart, in her mind, she is now like an irreparable damaged state emotionally. And for her to read that woman is ravished and the children are dashed to pieces, that would bring her extreme pain. And she would be at dismay. How could God judge? In the same way, my my abuser, the person who raped me, now God is in the position of that person who raped me. I can't take this. So this is the reaction. But the good news is this judgment, when God inflicts judgment, announces and unleashes judgment against Babylon, it is not against the victims of abuse. It is not against victims of violence. It is not against victims of rape and victims of pedophiles. It is against those perpetrators, those Babylonians who unleashed this terror. It is unleashed against the innocents, unleashed against the helpless people. That is the idea. Your abusers, your abusing stepfather, your abusing stepmother, the abusing person who perpetrated violent crimes against you, those are being judged by Almighty God. Their helpless victims were weak and helpless, so they couldn't stop these perpetrators. But God is stronger than these perpetrators. God, from his sovereign authority and infinite power, now remembers the crimes of Babylon, and he unleashes this judgment. So when we see and read graphic language and these things, always think it is against bad people, not for the helpless, weak, and innocents. So I want you to remember this in the back of your mind. And let's start Isaiah 13. Isaiah 13 is a beautiful chapter how God brings judgment on the Babylon. Now, I want to see more things. Like, let me see if I can introduce at this point. Yes, the religion, let me wipe this out. We're still doing script 2. But this is true church, the church. This is also New Jerusalem. This church, as long as it is faithful, it is New Jerusalem. But as she becomes idolatrous, or people inside a church or a group or whatever entity or an individual, when he goes bad, he will be transformed into this Babylon. It becomes Babylon. Now we read in one important verse in previous presentations. For Nebuchadnezzar, a heart of man is taken away and a heart of beast is given to him. So the church, when it has man, that is Jesus Christ, is replaced by somebody else. This is heart of beast. Here it has heart of man. This is Jesus Christ. Now, this has several connotations. Now, this is the image of Christ. And here on the right-hand side, you have image of the beast. This is the biggest battle we are engaged in. So the church, once upon a time, was good. Now it is gradually going bad. This is also called apostasy, moving away from truth, moving away from Jesus Christ, Yeshua, and they become Babylon. This is the Babylon. When it loses its truth, loses its savior, it becomes Babylon, and then God unleashes his wrath against Babylon. So now we are talking about the church and the church going bad and bringing the wrath of God on itself, on herself. That is the story behind the scenes. So we have now, when Babylon is judged, we are talking also about the church. We were talking about the greatest military power, the Babylon, being judged by another power that is stronger than Babylon, is raised from somewhere else. It is also commerce invasion. So the Babylon was luxurious in all its goods and things that it coveted, and it has that idolatry and covetousness that is brought to nothing because her Euphrates was cut off. And it was also a religious power. Her religion was also judged. Her idols were destroyed, and she was brought down. And the city was also burnt. The Babylon would be burnt because it was a proud mountain, proud against God, and God will make that into a burnt mountain. God also said, I would level you as a mountain. So you are no longer raised as a mountain, but you are leveled and brought low to the ground. And those are judgments. As we go through Isaiah 13, you see all these multiple threads. Some deal with the military aspect, some deal with commercial commerce aspect, some deal with religious aspect, some deal with the church has become Babylon, so it becomes a candidate for the wrath of God. So when wrath of God is unleashed against Babylon, we're not talking about one entity. We're talking about multiple layers, multiple entities, and all those are judged by one word, Babylon, and wrath of God against Babylon. So as we go through verses, I would try to explain this concept. Let's go back to Isaiah 13. We're back to the presentation, Isaiah 13. Let's launch. I will skip through these verses, these slides. This is Babylon, the woman, mother of harlots. This is the foundation of Babylon. It's made up of bricks and sand. And we have the magnificent Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar with its hanging gardens. It's a pinnacle of human glory and human pride, which God is going to judge because it is opposed to God. It is proud against God, and it is known for its idolatry, covetousness, and self glory, and exploiting others, terrorizing others, the violence that it commits against the people. All that, all the perpetrations, all the crimes of Babylon are remembered before God. So God judges this Babylon. The magnificence and glory of Babylon is brought to nothing. The Babylon becomes a desolate place. It becomes a habitation of the owls and satyrs. The language is very graphic. This is Nebuchadnezzar at the peak of Babylonian glory. This man was also judged in a dream, and eventually the whole kingdom of Babylon was judged by God, and the spiritual Babylon would also be spiritual, similarly judged by God. And the church, which is faithful city, New Jerusalem, when it goes bad, it also becomes spiritual Babylon and invites the wrath of God on herself. So we're dealing with multiple layers, and it's I think it will be easy for you to this here the Nebuchadnezzar heart of man is taken out, and heart of beast is given to him, and the externals were also changed. This is the statue last time we discussed, uh, the image of the beast. Everybody was told to worship, enforcing idolatry on everybody else. That is one of the reasons also God brings judgment on her, the idolatry. And then this is a lion. Babylon was depicted as a lion. So as a lion, as a roaring lion, like a devil, it looks for its innocent, helpless victims. It roars as a devil. That's the idea when God calls it as a lion. The burden of Babylon, Isaiah 13, verse 1, which Isaiah, the son of Amos, did see. So God shows him a vision. The burden or the judgment of Babylon by God. And lift up a banner. This is God telling. Lift up a banner upon the high mountain so that everybody can see this banner. Exalt the voice unto them. Who are them? We will shortly see. Shake the hand that they may go into the gates of the nobles. So God is here calling from ends of the earth to raise another nation. Immediate context, it is Medo Persia. Immediate context, the king was Cyrus, is bringing up the judgment. The people more fierce than Babylonians. And they would be raised and brought against Babylon by the Almighty God Himself. Here is God is calling for the judgment. How He is calling? Raising up army against Babylon. So that is the context. I have commanded my sanctified ones, here set apart ones. I have set apart them as a tool in my hands to judge Babylon. I have also called my mighty ones for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. So, people who are rejoicing in my highness, I'm also using them to judge Babylon. Notice that people who rejoice in my highness, God's greatness, it is unlikely that he is referring to Medo Persians. Probably he is referring to spiritual Cyrus, Jesus Christ, and the on he coming on white horse, and people behind him are also sitting on white horse. Those are resurrected saints of the first resurrection, and they rejoice in highness of their God, and they would come and judge the spiritual Babylon. So, spiritual Cyrus would unleash wrath of God against spiritual Babylon, while we have physical layer, physical Cyrus would unleash this terror against the physical Babylon. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts musters the host for the battle. So here the scenario is a world scenario. The whole world, whole cosmos we are discussing on epistles of John is also discussed as Babylon. The whole world would be judged at the second coming. Every nation would be dismantled and kingdom of God would be established. And Jesus Christ, Yeshua, would dash them to pieces as a pottery would be dashed with a rod of an iron. So that is the judgment in multiple layers. They come forth from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord. So here God is bringing that. He is owning this whole event, this whole initiative against Babylon, and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. Here, like instead of Babylon, God uses the whole land. That's an open-ended whole land of Babylon, or whole world, or whole Babylon, or the whole mother harlot in that context of religious context. Church gone bad is also judged. Just think of multiple layers. Hold ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. So the day of the Lord concept is associated with the judgment of Babylon. The end time world Babylon is judged by Almighty God with this very important phrase called Day of the Lord. Day of the Lord is chiefly discussed in Joel, Prophet Joel. When you get a time, please go through Prophet Joel. And then this is additional information about the day of the Lord being tied up to Babylon as a world. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. All these criminals who did these despicable crimes, now their hearts shall melt. They terrorized their victims. The victims' hearts melted, but now it is their turn for their hearts to melt at the terror that is unleashed by Almighty Sovereign God. Verse 8, and they shall be afraid, pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travails. They shall be amazed at one another. Their faces shall be as flames. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel. It is cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners out of it. It is not normal sinners, they are high profile criminals ruling as rulers of the Babylon. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. It is global, celestial, catastrophic events. Sun shall not give his light, her light, and the stars and the moon also will not give light. That is one layer. But the church gone bad also has a layer in it. The sun, representation of Christ, his truth will no longer be given as a blessing and protection to the church that has gone bad. And the moon shall not cause her light to shine. The moon is a reflection of sun. Its light. It is an illusion for church. Church, the true people of God would no longer be there in that church gone bad. They would leave somehow. And the constellations thereof, the stars, also will not give their light. It's a multi-layered concept. And I will punish the world for their evil. The context switched to the whole world as a Babylon, and the wicked for their iniquity. I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. See the language. They are terrible people, high profile criminals ruling and occupying the government positions of this Babylon. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than golden wedge of Ophir. This is that bulk of the Babylonians get killed in the world scenario. Very few people would be left. So it's a major onslaught on spiritual Babylon, perhaps, even the physical Babylon. So the gold is scarce quantity. I will make them like golden wedge of Ophir. Ophir is an interesting place that is referred to in few places in Bible. It's one of the places from where people got gold and brought it to Solomon. Just a thought to think about. And verse 13, therefore I will shake the heavens and the earth. God will shake heavens and earth to bring the judgment, and earth shall remove out of her place. So God will shake the heavens, and earth shall move out of or remove out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, in the day of his fierce anger. So the day of the Lord is also called day of his fierce anger, that is against Babylon, that is unleashed. And it shall be as the chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. Here, see the sheep. It's a church scenario that every man turn to his own people and flee everyone to his own land. So here the Babylonians came from many lands, many countries. They came here for the prosperity, for the luxury, for the idolatry, for all the pride, pomp, and glory, and all the boasting of Babylon they were partaking. Now they are fleeing, every man to his own land, because they see from a distance the judgment is coming from the Almighty God. Everyone that is found, that is, people who have not fled to their own lands, still stay in the Babylon. This is what is going to happen to them. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through. That means a spear or a sword will be thrust through their bodies, they will be killed. And everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children also be dashed to pieces before their eyes, and their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives be ravished. Why is this graphic language here? I'm pretty sure that's what they did to their helpless victims. The helpless victims of other nations and perhaps people of God, their wives were ravished by these criminals and their houses were spoiled and their children were dashed to pieces. We see several stories now happening in Middle East where people of God under the name of Christ, wherever people have that name of Christ on them, professing to be Christians, they were killed. They were pulled out of their homes and killed in front of their children. Sometimes their children are dashed before the very eyes of their parents. And we have documental evidence that the children, the small infants, were thrown into the air and they were caught by their gun bonnets and the knife so that the little infants will be killed before the eyes of their parents, and their houses were taken over, and they were forced to leave their homes and all the belongings to the criminals. And of course, their wives were ravished before their very eyes. And here the judgment is coming on the very criminals that perpetrated those crimes. Here is the good news. It is not from on the innocent people. It is not on helpless people. It is on the proud and arrogant criminals that did all these vicious, unspeakable, despicable things on the people. Now it is their turn to receive the judgment from sovereign God, who is more powerful than them. Behold, I will stir up the Medes, here the Medo-Persian Empire, against them. The context switched to physical scenario, the physical layer, where you have kingdom of Babylon and kingdom of Medo-Persia. Against them, which shall not regard silver. So the Medes don't care for money, as Babylonians did, or for gold, not like Babylonians. They shall not delight in it. They have one and only one purpose, to destroy the Babylon. Verse 18, their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces. So their Babylonian young men, these criminals, there are criminal young men who are criminals, who are part of Babylonian system, they would also be dashed to pieces by this merciless, cruel Medo-Persian soldiers, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. So this is the judgment unleashed by righteous, holy God. So you can only imagine what these guys must have done to their helpless victims. And Babylon, the glory of the kingdoms and the beauty of Chaldeans, excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. So the judgment of Babylon would be very similar to the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah. It will be burnt. That's what God is saying. In fact, He is bringing the concept, the thread of Sodom and Gomorrah, and merging with the thread of Babylon. Verse 20, it shall never be inhabited. So this is the end result. Once it is completely judged by God, it becomes never be inhabited, neither shall it dwell in from generation to generation. It's a desolate place. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. So there no longer be teachers, God's true teachers, teaching truth. They would no longer be present in this church that went bad. So the context switches between the layers as we go through Isaiah. It's very typical of Isaiah. 21, verse 21, but the wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. These are the most evil and wicked people would come and take shelter in a church that went bad. All the true and faithful people would leave the church Now it is inhabited by the most vicious ministers, teachers, pastors, and the brethren. That is completely gone bad. That will receive the judgment from God. And that is religious layer, spiritual church layer. There are political layer. And also the whole nation of Babylon would be laid waste. And once no human being is dwelling, guess what? Who would come and dwell? You would have all doleful creatures. All these things, like they don't need good food or good water, they somehow survive. You see bats coming and doleful creatures come, and you have owls, and you have all these bad creatures. They come and dwell where man would not inhabit there. That is the state of Babylon when it is being judged. And the wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and the dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. Then the king promoted. Okay, that's done. I think we're done with 13. So I will stop it here. So this is the kind of judgment that Babylon would be subjected to. Now we will open the room for discussion and your comments. Yes, Alan, please go ahead.
Yeah, as you read through the chapter, we don't see this kind of a destruction or a wrath in Daniel's account. We see very little, actually. When Belshazzar violates the holy vessels by having a wine bash with all his friends and all the royal family in Babylon. It says he was slain that same night in Daniel chapter 5. But this extensive description isn't found in that place when it changes hands over to Persia. So we must see this as a yet future event. I think when Persia, the Medes, came and took over Babylon at that time, they preserved a lot of its resources. And they continued to use Daniel. Darius, he continued to honor Daniel. And so I think this chapter 13 must contain mainly future. Yet the ultimate fall of Babylon is fallen. What do you think of that?
You are right. It is much of it is for future, but also secular history records very interesting, strange things. What Medo-Persians did to Babylon. After that night, Cyrus conquered, and the future kings or emperors of Medo-Persia, they unleashed terror against Babylonians. The first kind of terror, as recorded by historians, was a religious terror. They killed a bunch of the priests, and they tore down the Babylonian idols, and they were replaced by Persian idols. Some of them were left desolate, they just destroyed. They felt that the religion of Babylon was a threat to them. So there's a judgment on religious layer of Babylon, and the political, whoever opponents are there, they were decimated. So there was terror, at least recorded to in some ways by historians. That far I would say.
Yeah, okay. I have not read any the secular history on the fall of Babylon, but I'd imagine there is some out there. I only really knew about Daniel chapter 5, that transition that took place at that time. Has very little description of the transition.
Yeah, eventually it became uninhabited place after a series of judgments on Babylon.
Okay.
That was also a historical fact. And Saddam Hussein, he tried to rebuild parts of Babylonian, how do we say, the remains, relics of Babylon, he tried to restore. And as soon as he started to revive Babylon, that was end of his career. He was killed. So nobody dared to revive Babylon. It's almost as if it stands as a desolate, uninhabited place. That is another thing I wanted to mention.
So he had apparently some kind of delusions of grandeur for himself,
Yeah.
and it never materialized.
Yeah. He has coins minted in Iraq. I saw the picture of that coin. Probably you would find it if you Google it. They have that coin has a icon of Nebuchadnezzar and side by side Saddam Hussein. So
Oh,
perhaps he's
wow.
claiming himself to be Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, that would be an interesting coin to have as a conversation piece.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I noticed here when you drop down in the chapter where it talks about in verse 21, it's talking about the wild beasts, the owls, the ostrich, the goats, the hyenas, and the jackals. I think these animals are symbolic of unclean spirits that dwell in wilderness areas.
Mm-hmm.
In another place, it says, I think it's is it in Zechariah? Or no, it's in Revelation. It says, has become the habitation of every foul spirit and every unclean and hated bird
Yep. Yep.
for Babylon. So yeah, there's quite a description here that really meshes well with Joel. So we can see that clearly,
Yeah.
especially in verse 10. Verse 9, day of the Lord. And
Yeah.
verse 10, the stars not giving light, and the moon, and the sun. But interesting in verse 11 is I punish the world for its evil. What you said was it was a broad base that Babylon covers this system of political, military, and religious and economic. It covers the earth.
Yeah.
So that's why it says here the world. It's a vast expanse of power and influence and control.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot in this chapter. And where it says chapter 13, I penciled in there, see chapter 21, because that chapter 21 has extensive also description of, of Babylon's demise. I don't know if that was that was important or not to your study.
They consider chapter 13 to 23 as one unit. Some of the teachers. So the series of Gentile nations that surrounded Judea, the people of God, covenanted people of God. So these are surrounding nations that have influence on Judea, or Judea has influence on them. And God would judge each of the nations in those chapters 13 to 24. So they all seem to somehow, even though different nations are there, these scripts tend to merge uh, into some form of God's wrath against the whole world. That's where these chapters end. But they
Yeah,
don't.
because they're all in succession, and they have to obviously be in the same time frame
Yeah, yeah,
as if they're all happening concurrently. If judgment is on the whole world, it would cover all these places that are mentioned in the chapters against Moab and Damascus and
Tyre and Philistia.
yeah.
I took a little bit longer time to explain the background concepts. I hope that you are okay with that. My sketches, even though they are not perfect, but hope that the sketches would convey the concept.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah. There's so many places that also mesh with these
Yeah,
throughout the rest of the prophets. As you're probably planning to go to Jeremiah 50 or
50, 51.
51, yeah,
Yeah.
and some of the others. And you're probably going to spend some time on "Come out of her, my people, and be separate."
Yes. When we come to Revelation, uh, that's the call. Even in Jeremiah 50, 51, we have those concepts echoed.
Yeah, yeah. I was surprised when I looked at that and I looked at the cross references, how many different places say that. There's quite a variety of places that say "come out."
Yeah. Now, if you go to Joel, the day of the Lord was associated there with vast army of locusts. They come and attack. And here you have Medo-Persians coming and attacking. There are several independent threats. They seem to converge on one end time uh, forces, I think. There are lots of similarities across different threads. We think they are unrelated, but somehow they become synonymous with each other. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, what do you think about this, this in verse 10? Compare verse 10 with the plague of darkness in Egypt, one of the 10 plagues of darkness. Do you think, remember when you went through the 10 plagues? Do you think
Mhm.
this verse 10 could have some of the same inference here? Is this the same thing?
Stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. So when the locusts went ahead, there was some darkness. That is one immediate thought. But second thought, I think it has to be first, is the darkness that set over the whole Egypt. People could not see anybody else, even their own selves. They don't know where their nose was. They have
Yeah.
to move their hands and search and find their nose. That was the pitch dark. And everybody stood where they are for their entire period of darkness. I think that is related to here.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. There
Yeah.
seems to be so much similarity there because you went through the plagues as the two witnesses can call down the plagues
Yes.
as needed.
Yes. And sun going dark, moon shall not give her light. We see that in Matthew 24, Olivet prophecy. Also, we see that in Joel. Wherever day of the Lord happens, you have that signature statement. This is a signature statement, I believe. The sun, moon, and stars. The signature statement, wherever it occurs in the Bible, there you can almost jump and assume that it is talking about the day of the Lord. We can go in very detail for this chapter 13. It's going to take up lots of time. I did it very high level so that we get an idea. This is, I believe this is first cut we are doing, but we will do for second and third cuts when we revisit, perhaps after several months, after a year or two, when we come back to these verses, we will do it with a magnifying glass, with a bull's eye. We would do at that time. We can have a separate series on just Babylon. At that time, we would go verse by verse and really build up the concepts. But right now we are in two witnesses, so I'm giving you a very high level sketch view of Babylon. Just basics, bare minimum, bare bone basics. That's what we are doing now for Babylon. But that's good, I think. People are not familiar with Babylon, but now have some idea, some fair dim view of Babylon. We have to start somewhere, right?
Oh yeah, you have to start somewhere, and it's always good to see things again that maybe you. I know years and years ago when I went through this material, uh, I didn't I didn't stay there. I moved on to other things, and now it's gotten to where I don't remember going through it. To tell you the truth, it's like renewing it is showing many more connections than the first time I read through this.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to say one more thing. Having strong military itself is not evil. Being a prosperous country itself is not evil. But the evil is, I think, for the whole Babylon is in rebellion against God and in opposition to God. Let us make a name for ourselves. That's where they don't have any restraint. They don't have character and restraint to handle this much resources, these many resources of being number one military, number one wealthy country, number one commerce, number one in their religion, and everything number one, and luxuries. We see that more in Jeremiah 51, as well as Revelation 17 and 18. They have best things at their disposal. The glorying, apart from God, against God, the glory. And then because they don't have restraint, they go cruel and they become barbaric and they become devilish and demonic. That's where they cross all the limits, all the restraint, and they transition themselves into this most wicked entity. And God no wonder says, its sins have come remembrance before God. So Babylon's sins have raised even to the level of throne of God, and God remembered her sins. Whatever that means, God remembered her sins. So,
Well, some of that could mean compared to you and I and his people, he doesn't remember their sins. Right?
yeah,
And their sins and their lawlessness, I will remember no more, meaning they've been atoned for. Well, Babylon is not atoned for.
sure.
So he remembers their sin because they have not made peace with him. That could be part of why it says, and he remembered their sins. I mean, it's a simple and simplistic sounding answer, but I think he remembers them also because they're continual and no signs of repentance. Therefore, there's a much greater remembering of them because there's no sorrow, there's no regret, no repentance. So he's remembering them almost like there's a certain breaking point. Okay, I remember all these things you're doing, and suddenly it's going to be like it says in one place, like a wall that breaks through suddenly. So there's a certain breaking point where it's God himself says, that's it. There will be no more of this. I will not permit this any longer. And then he intervenes against them. Kind of like the way that the verse says, the times of the Gentiles, right? The times of the Gentiles will come to a close
Yeah,
at his appointed time.
yeah,
Another interesting fact about this chapter, it's written approximately 200 years before the fall of Babylon to the Persians.
yeah,
If you look at Isaiah as about 720 BC
yeah.
and the fall of
700s.
Babylon around 520.
Yeah,
I don't know if that really means anything. Probably not. It's just this is one of the reasons that Bible skeptics speak against the credibility of the Bible because they don't want to admit that someone could know in advance the
yeah,
name of Cyrus and so forth. They would know 200 years in advance that this was going to happen.
yeah. I've heard that discussion. So the skeptics have no limits, right? That's why God says uh, in the Proverbs, fool says there is no God. So they would be proved to be fools if they question word of God. But the scripts God is giving much ahead, like 100 or 200 years ahead of time before these things took place in physical layer. And many hundreds of years for the spiritual Babylon to appear and the spiritual judgment to take place, that is spiritual Cyrus. So these are laying prophetic foundations for many, many, many years.
So, what do you think about the pattern of God calls Abraham out of Babylon to take him to a place for to see his inheritance,
Yeah,
all the way to the end of the age? He's calling his people out of Babylon, as if this theme is a continual theme that runs throughout the ages. He starts by calling him out of Ur of the Chaldees and then ends with, "Come out of her, my people."
yeah.
Is there like a continuum of that theme?
It looks to me like that, like as early as Abraham, God has this script in mind, a godly figure, a faithful father of the faithful has to leave Babylon. These things play in physical layers, but God would not tell us all about Babylon at that time. He simply commands Abraham to pack his suitcases and leave. Only that much he tells in the beginning, but later on he develops that concept why a godly person has to leave Babylon. You're right. These scripts are way early. They were laid there. In fact, Garden of Eden is another place we can go for Babylon. When Eve decided to eat the fruit, she became Babylon because she decided to have her own God, not the true God, not the real God, her own God in her own mind. And she usurped God's authority. Let us make a Shem after our own Shem. That's what she did conceptually and went ahead and ate that fruit. So we have first incidence of Babylon, and she became mother of all idolatry, mother of harlotry. So you can make a case for her to be mother, a foundation for mystery Babylon in Book of Revelation. It starts from Eve after her fall. Before her fall, Eve pictured New Jerusalem because she was right standing with God and she was mother of all living. That's what Adam called her. She's called Eve because she's mother of all living. And also, she was made from man. So, Eve represents both the woman, both the mothers. Isn't it fascinating? So, that's the first occurrence of Babylon, Tower of Babel, and then Abraham. And these are early scripts. And then Isaiah 13. And God continues to build this concept, Babylon. And Revelation 17 and 18 are really, it reaches its climax, I believe.
Well, what do you think about Hagar being the bondwoman? Abraham decided to take matters into his own hands and make a decision to take Hagar to make baby, to make a son of promise that could never be the son of promise. So he takes Hagar and tries to force his own way to make the son of promise, and it becomes bondage. And Sarah is in bondage to Ishmael. And it says in Galatians, the son of the bondwoman, cast out the son of the bondwoman.
Correct.
This is all because he made his own Shem. Abraham said, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
I can't wait for, I don't have the patience to wait for God to do it. I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
So he came in bondage to his own decision and all that trouble that came upon that family because of Hagar and Ishmael.
Yeah. The trio decided Sarah first, and Abraham yields, and then Hagar agrees for this arrangement. And we have Ishmael as the product of that. Let us make our own Shem. So the product is Ishmael. And then eventually God comes and blesses Sarah, and she will have Isaac. It's that pictures New Jerusalem. Sarah becomes New Jerusalem. Hagar becomes earthly Jerusalem, which is in bondage. And then that bondage is again, she pictures probably Babylon in some aspects. But when we come to 17 and 18, it I'm I'm giving you very advanced where we are going. Uh, it becomes Jerusalem. The mystery woman becomes Jerusalem. Jerusalem becomes the epicenter of mystery Babylon. There are simply too many verses that would point us to Jerusalem now that is in the Middle East.
Yeah. Which could also be symbolic of the church gone bad. If we want to take the word Jerusalem, which is Sodom and Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to take it in a symbolic sense, but not in a geographical sense, we see that the faith originally went forth from Jerusalem, but now the church gone bad, the apostate church is the representation of Babylon.
Correct. Correct.
Rather than a geographical location. But we can say that we can see that both of them are compared to Babylon.
That's correct.
So it gets kind of complicated when you start to examine all the symbolism and try to piece it together. Because some things symbolically can mean more than one. I think Babylon means more than one thing.
That's just the difficulty with Babylon. You have multi-layered teaching. These are truly multi-layered concepts. And when we come to Revelation, people will be lost. That's what most commentators are saying. Some teachers would say we are entering muddy waters when we come to Revelation. Nothing is very clear and separate. It's like muddy waters. Like, what is Babylon there? Is it political? Is it military? Is it like commerce? Is it religious? What is it referring to? So it's very difficult to differentiate there. Like there are multiple entities that fall under Babylon. It becomes an umbrella term. It covers many things in many layers. So then begs us the question, whenever they say Babylon is this, Babylon is doing that, you should ask the question, which layer are you in? So it depends on the layer, your answer depends there. So if you are on physical layer, you have one answer. If it is a religious layer or political layer, military layer, commerce layer, you have different answers because probably you're referring to slightly different entity. So woman riding the beast. In some layers, beast becomes Babylon. In other layers, the woman is Babylon. So we should develop the discipline to be layer specific.
Yeah, I understand what you're getting at because if we speak in generalities, we may not be able to really communicate what we're talking about. So yeah, being more specific as to what era and what aspect is important.
Yeah, let me give you an example. The verse says the voice of bride and voice of bridegroom shall no more be heard in you. That layer is church gone bad. Now you cannot take it to a political entity called Babylon because it never had voice of bride or voice of bridegroom. This verse necessitates that before the entity became Babylon, once upon a time, maybe in its humble beginnings, it had voice of bride and voice of bridegroom. Now both are absent now. It has become a desolate place. So that verse belongs to a particular layer of church gone bad. That's how each verse finds its place in a particular layer. That's where we are going.
Yeah, that's a really good example because uh, of what those things symbolize. That if if his people really do come out of her, then the voice of the bride and bridegroom will not be found in her.
Converse is also true. If you stay there, you are no longer bride. So you have to flee for your life.
Yeah. So
So
if we read,
this is, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, so if we read the parable of the 10 virgins, we expect that half of the bride stays in Babylon.
Yeah.
I mean, that may not really be a very accurate view, but for some reason, in the parable, there's five this way and five that way. Five apparently have enough oil, and five apparently do not. So can we kind of equate that with those who come out and those who do not come out? I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch.
You can make a case, you can build a case, but you have to justify it. So when you build a case, you pull all the scriptures and all the concepts together and build a case. But if there is not sufficient evidence in scriptures, then it becomes a weak case. Nevertheless, it's a case. We recognize it as a somewhat weak case. But you can also build a strong case if you have sufficient scriptural evidence. So this is where we ultimately end up in our analysis. There are weak cases, there are intermediately uh, good cases, and there are strong cases. See the granularity of our understanding of the revelation and the prophecy. It gets much more rich, much more vivid. We discussed today, Babylon is judged. So we can just focus on how God judged Babylon at different places where Babylon is found. You can take Tower of Babel and how God judged them, and city-state of Nebuchadnezzar, how God judged that entity. And then you go to Revelation 17:18, you know how God judged that. And Jeremiah 50:51, again, it refers to the physical city-state Babylon. There also you find wealth of information, how God judged that entity. And then You have Sodom and Gomorrah judgment is linked to this judgment. So you can study Sodom and Gomorrah. And Matthew 24, Olivet prophecy, ties up the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah to the judgment of Noah's antediluvian world. So you can have how the world was judged by flood. That is also becomes like Babylon. So you have several places, several threads that we can discuss how it is judged.
There was something I noticed also in verse 19 of the chapter, Isaiah 13:19. I was reading along in the New King James as you were reading. I can't remember if it has the same content, but it says, in Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' pride. Yours has excellency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is a better translation or not than the King James. This is the new. Here it says the Chaldeans' pride shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. I was saying, wow, he's got the word pride and Sodom in the same same verse because they have this idea of Pride Month, the LGBT Pride movement is all about pride.
Yes, see, this is such an important verse that brings two independent threads together.
Yeah.
Now, all the LGBTQ is now part of Babylon because they receive same judgment. So that begs us the question, are they same? Spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah are the same as Babylon. It has to be. These are not like random verses. They're coming from God. Isaiah is not thinking and guessing and writing.
No, I see the NET version has the word pride in it. Source of honor and pride. Okay, yeah, I just thought it was strange that it was kind of ironic that the word pride and Sodom appear in the same verse, the same sentence, because they still use that word today.
Yeah, pride movement. You know, many of the teachers see that the signatures would never betray us. The actual people fulfilling that signature in the script, they may not know that they are actually fulfilling that script. The people have no clue who are doing this.
Right.
But the beauty is their signatures were given to us in a code language in the Word of God.
Yeah, I think pride appears several times. Doesn't it appear in Jeremiah's account of? Seems like it appears in some other places as well.
Oh, Jeremiah, he says, you are a proud mountain.
Yeah.
I will make you a burnt mountain. You are a destroying mountain. I will make you a burnt mountain. The pride is very essential thing, the pride and glory of Babylon.
It seems very strange when you're in the presence of someone who is very prideful. It has a very strange feel, like it's just like it can't end well. It's not going to end well. That's what. Have you ever been around someone that was just like mouthy and very prideful, self-aggrandizing, self-willed? You just get this bad feeling like that will not end well.
Yeah. When you're proud, you also become blind. You no longer have sound reasoning and sound thinking.
Yeah.
One of the Greek words for pride is tuflavo. Tuflavo is very interesting nuance. It's like smoking your brain. It's fogging your reasoning.
Yeah, it does do that.
You're
Is it?
no longer realistic. You're no longer standing on ground. You lift yourself with this smoky, foggy thing.
You could probably say that with a lot of sins. You're just not thinking right. If you're angry, uh, anything, idolatrous, whatever, that would affect your thinking. You're just not thinking clear. Wouldn't make wise decisions.
Yeah, I think it divides between wise and foolish. That's a good thing.
Yeah, pride seems to be definitely one of the stronger ones. Takes you down.
Yeah, Proverbs really talks about pride in a generic sense.
There are three Greek words that are used for pride in New Testament. First is hubristes. There is no cure for that prideness. You are locked and imprisoned in that pride state. Very little hope for them. Second is uh, alazania. Alazania is boastful arrogance. So when God comes and takes away all that you have, which you boast, then you are brought to senses. That is alazania. And the third is tuphulas. Tuphulas is mild pride. You you give away your sound reasoning by smoking yourself, fogging yourself with a little bit of pride. Eventually, all the three would be judged. Alazania is very interesting. When Apostle John describes us the world, cosmos, all that is in the world is lust of eyes, lust of flesh, and pride of life. That word pride is alazania. Your pretentious boasting, arrogant boasting of physical possessions. That is one dictionary definition of alazania. You just boast of your physical possessions. That's again Babylon. Babylon boasts in its glory and its abundance, in its luxuries. She pampers herself with dainty things and goody things. How much she exalted herself. Give her double. That's what God's language.
Yeah. I'm looking at Proverbs 8:13, where it talks about pride, arrogancy, and the evil way, the froward mouth. The word froward is perversity or fraud, a perverse thing. So it's a perverted thing to have prideful words.
Yeah.
But here he's saying the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, to hate pride, and to hate arrogancy. Yeah, I can recognize pride some people sometimes, maybe like celebrities or sports figures. But do I really hate pride and arrogancy, or do I just merely recognize pride and arrogancy? Do you find yourself having an abiding hatred, or just a recognition of it? This says to hate it. And then at the end of the verse, do I hate? These things do I hate. I don't think we're trained to hate it. I've never been taught to hate it. I've been taught to resist pride. I've been taught to try to discern pride. But hatred, I have not been taught. But the proverb says, yes, you should hate it because these things do I hate. Am I making any sense here?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A righteous person is honored and exalted. And even we will let a righteous person slap us because it is good for us. But a vile person is despised. We don't despise vile person. The way we were trained, we were told, hate the evil, but love the person. It doesn't work like that. You have to separate. You have to maintain separation, and you should not. This is much of the internal works that we talk about in epistles of John. Internally, you should never compromise and say it is okay. You should not love that person in the sense of accepting or condoning or saying it is okay. You must make a judgment internal. Once you fail to make that distinction and judgment inside your as an internal work, it is guaranteed that you fail outwardly also, external work at some later point in time. So we fall internally first and then externally. We know these principles, but I'm just rephrasing that. So
Yeah.
if you don't hate pride, arrogancy, and evil way in your heart, eventually you become friends with them and embrace them.
Which is Babylon.
Yeah. But if you
Yeah.
say don't criticize them, you have to love them. So you have to define what is loving them, what is not loving them. If you don't define the word love, you're going to go astray. You would go deep into Babylon and live there. Because God says love, so you would love Babylon because love is of God. After all, God is love. Then I will love Babylon. See the reasoning, how it goes.
So it's a perversion where it says love your enemies. It's a perversion to take that verse and justify love of evil people, love of Babylonian attitudes of pride and arrogance.
Yeah, because we don't define the terms. So it can mean anything to anybody. It becomes a subjective thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the crux of our problem with our churches and our teachers. You would never define a term. Be nice. Don't pass on this junk to your next generation. He never defines what that junk is. So if you don't define the terms, you are doing the disservice. But if you start defining the words, then you have a completely different gospel.
Yeah, if you don't define it, it means whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah. In Raymond Mills' Zoom room. One time, Raymond got this bright idea. We will read one chapter before the Bible study begins, any book. Then I suggested Proverbs. Let's do every time we come here, let's do one chapter of Proverbs. And we used to rotate among the people. So there's one lady, I don't remember her name. She volunteered that she will read. So we came to some fourth or fifth chapter of Proverbs, and she was reading and she stopped and stuck there. The words are not coming out from her mouth because she was shocked. The scriptures that are telling her, she never heard them. These are very cutting. The Proverbs are really cutting. Wishy-washy, easygoing religion would be challenged. What happened? What happened? Why did you stop? Go ahead. She took like a minute or so to resume reading. It was so hard, like shock to digest what scriptures are telling in Proverbs.
Yeah. Well, it says, is not my word like a fire that burns and like a hammer? So if we're reading something and we are suddenly shocked by it, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
We take note of something that seems to be difficult to accept. Some of Nebuchadnezzar's last words. He says, I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol the honor and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways judgment. And then this is the last thing he says. And those that walk in pride, he's able to abase.
He learned it
So-
firsthand.
The king of Babylon makes that statement.
First-hand statement. Sometimes you speak through others' experiences because this guy is his own experience.
It's kind of like, okay, I want to leave you with one last thing that I have to say. Those who walk in pride, he's able to abase. And that's the last thing you hear from him. Oh, that's kind of comical, really. There's a little humor in that's the last word we hear from the king of Babylon. That's really ironic that he puts that last.
I mean, God's judgment has resulted in these words. It takes this pride, most proud Babylon and its most proud king, and God deals with him and makes him to say these words.